Hi everyone, it's Jen, and I'm back again with another update on my progress with the Otome Jam. So it is currently Saturday, June 12th. It's the end of the 6th week, and we have 2 weeks left to go. I had said earlier that I had hoped to have everything finished by the end of the 3rd week, because I do have some in real life stuff going on that's going to make it a little more difficult for me to get much done during that last week. And I am happy to report that I think I'm in a pretty good spot to try to make that my goal. Currently, I have a couple friends who are doing some playtesting for me. I have to make a graphic, or I want to make a graphic for this main title menu here. That'll be a unique image. Right now this is just like a placeholder with mostly default GUI kind of stuff that comes with the RenPy development kit. And there's a special scene during one of the endings that I want to be able to add, I guess a CG, like a cinematic illustration to kind of reward the player. But this is just a demo. I really do hope to expand on it to make it multi-level instead of just this one floor. So I won't feel too awful if I don't get a chance to do that part. That's like my stretch goal. My other stretch goal is that I want to make a website, an itch website for this game, and I want to be able to have the concept art for the male protagonist option and for the female companion option available as well, because I've noticed that with my games, since I'm trying to make one playthrough a complete experience, I don't design my games to require multiple playthroughs or even necessarily encourage multiple playthroughs. I want just the one playthrough to be satisfying in and of itself. So some of the feedback that I've been getting from people who have played the first Soul Union is that they didn't really feel the need to play the other routes or other options because they felt like they got a complete experience with just the one route that they played. I still think it's important to have different options for people to be able to experience the story in a way that they can relate to most or that they find most enjoyable. So I really do want to have the options to have that male protagonist and the female companion available to give people those choices. But I want, how do I put this? I want to be able to add those features as quickly as I can before people get kind of too wrapped up in the one available route, that kind of becomes the one true route. Sort of just like whichever version of a story that you see first, whether it be like the movie or the book or the original or the reboot or the sub or the dub, is the one that you kind of become attached to, and that becomes like the default. I want to be able to have the other options available as soon as possible so that one route doesn't become like the default route. Unfortunately, I just don't see how I'll be able to implement those two options in time for the end of the jam. I make the companions, and now I'm also planning on making the protagonists have unique personalities and unique interactions, so much like the first game. It's almost like rewriting everything. The scenarios are the same. There's the same kind of like events that happen, but because every character reacts to it differently, and even the characters themselves, like playing Jo, the female protagonist, if you have her with Wreath companion, then when certain events unfold, she will react differently because she's influenced by her companion, versus if she was with Saladre, the female option, then she will react differently in that same situation because she's influenced by her companion. So everything basically ends up getting rewritten. So it's kind of like making, I don't know, like 4 different games in one. And I'm starting to get a little concerned, honestly, about the size of this game. I know I'm kind of pushing the engine on my boss encounter. There's some lag there, and I actually went back and tried to kind of like alleviate some of the lag by setting up the sprites a little differently, but regardless, I know that there's some things that I need to optimize, or that I could go back and optimize better, as far as like how I'm kind of like layering the graphics and like the format and everything. So I'm definitely going to have to go back and do that as well. But there's a possibility that I might end up just releasing the male protagonist option as a separate downloadable game from the female option, because I don't want to go over that 1 GB limit with itch. I really want to try to stay under that. So anyways, let me show you what I've gotten done this week, now that that's all out of the way. Everything is pretty much done, except for those couple of extra graphics, extra illustrations that I want to do. So I've got like 2 that'll probably take me like 4 days, probably take me like 2 days to 1 day to kind of like draw it and ink it and color it, and then another day to finalize the colors, to do tweaking and edits in Photoshop, and then to animate. So, and prep the layers for animation, and then animate it. They're going to be more limited animation, like very limited, kind of like just very subtle little hair blowing kind of stuff, like nothing major, but that'll probably still take me additional days. So that'll probably take 4 days of my upcoming week just doing those. In the meantime, I've got a couple friends who are testing, looking for bugs and just kind of like helping me figure out how to scale the difficulty, because it's not supposed to be a difficult game. And so based on the feedback, I'm probably going to make it just a little bit more forgiving with the energy replenishment that I have set up. And you can kind of see from the history of like our kind of most recent developments is that most of it is like fixing bugs, trying to reduce lag, fixing graphical bug, fixing position. I guess yesterday I did finish scripting the endings, and then I went through and I kind of tried to debug all the flags that were brought up by running that lint that's built into RenPy, fixing a kind of an exploit that you could do with the lead button, fixing the alignment of some of the assets. So yeah, you can kind of get an idea of, by looking at this, like what most of the stuff that we've been working on this past week. And we'll probably be going into the upcoming week. We'll be just trying to check for bugs and fix for bugs. A lot of them are related to like the skipping option. I am a busy person and an impatient person, so if any game is going to have any shot of like me replaying it, it's got to have skip enabled. And Zeal's like in love with the skip function too, so it's really important for us to get that working properly to make sure that that's available for people. So yeah, I made one last encounter. Let me go ahead and load it up. So after the player receives their vassal, it's funny because like I've set up this whole game to be about having this leader switch mechanic and being able to kind of manage your energy between the protagonist and the vassal, but you don't actually get an opportunity. I realize that you don't really get an opportunity to actually explore this option in the demo, because you've already cleared everything. You've already cleared all the rooms, like going back to the entrance, and I didn't really want to create like new puzzles for those rooms. So I decided instead to have this boss encounter kind of at the very end of returning to the entrance. And the mechanics around this boss encounter are pretty simple. It's not made to be a difficult encounter. What it's supposed to be doing is training the player to get used to using this leader switch function, which it's disabled right now because if I allowed the player to use this leader switch function, it's a call statement. But it would kind of obliterate this text. So anytime that I wanted to have text that, and, you know, kind of script where he or she gets a status ailment, I had to disable this button so that they wouldn't be able to bypass those scripts. So now we have access to switching the leader again. So right now Joe cannot interact or move because she's ensnared. So if I try to hit the interact option here, she can't do anything. So I have to have the party member who is not snared perform actions, which in this case there's 4 targetable areas on this boss, the center, and then these 3 branches. And the way that the lore works for this this dream ritual that they're inside is that the protagonist, who is the Weaver, has more of the ability to affect the environment, versus the vassal. It has more energy but is less able to directly influence things in the environment. So the general strategy for this encounter is going to be for your companion to distract the monster in order to free her up to attack these branches. And if they manage to avoid the attacks, because there is a percentage chance that they can dodge, then they can do a joint attack that will take out these branches faster. But first of all, this companion needs to make a distraction. And he's managed to avoid it, so I'll be able to do a joint attack on this branch to get rid of it. And we want to get rid of all these branches in order for this kind of central eye thing to not be able to have any oh, and we were lucky. So this is going to be probably a pretty fast encounter because we were lucky enough to be able to another joint attack. Take that out. This time he was not able to dodge, so we are going to go ahead and switch to the protagonist, who is now currently available. She tries to interact with the eye. It doesn't want to pay attention to her, which is actually good because we don't want her to get ensnared. But out of the 2, if we want to defeat this boss, we want to try to have her freed up as much as possible. So yeah, this is not meant to be a difficult fight. It's meant to be an exercise and training the player to use the strengths and weaknesses of the characters and to get them used to using this leader switch mechanic. And I guess Reef is just being a ninja right now because he managed to dodge like 3 out of the 4 times he was attacked, so good job, Reef. I was super lucky. And we get this that sound cue is gonna have to be switched a little bit. And then we have, yeah, we have this kind of just goes towards the ending of the of this demo. So there's just kind of dialogue between these 2 characters up until the end. And that part of the scripting probably took me an entire day. Sometimes I don't talk too much about the writing process because I feel like it's pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot to talk about with it. But truthfully, it is one of the more difficult parts of creating these visual novels, in my opinion, which is somewhat ironic because I don't talk about it that much, because I don't really know that much that I can say about it, other than, I've been reading a lot of light novels to try to train myself to be able to write a little bit more concisely in a style that I feel is more beneficial towards this medium. So I think that's probably one of the best things you can do for improving your writing, is just doing reading. So in my spare time, kind of before I go to sleep, I've been probably spending like an hour or two just like reading. And I think that helps. These are what kind of the scripts look like. I tend to do this style of choice making where the consequences to the choices are usually like stat related, and like those stats, the accumulation of those stats will eventually lead to a particular outcome, because I don't like to say you have to choose A in order to go on route A, and you have to choose B in order to go on route B. Like, I don't like forcing the player into a situation where one possibly seemingly arbitrary choice is going to dictate like the entire outcome of the story, because then in order to make the project manageable, you're stuck with only giving them, a handful of choices that actually matter. And then two, it can end up leading to situations where players have to like look up walkthroughs in order to get like the ending they want, because they're like, okay, well, I have to tell them that my favorite color is this, and that I like to eat that, and then I have to like go with them to this particular location in order to get the ending that I want. And a lot of times I feel like those choices seem somewhat arbitrary, and they're usually like really specific, where it's like if I make one wrong choice out of those like 4 choices or something, I'm going to be stuck with like the mediocre or bad ending that I don't want. And again, I don't want to waste people's time with having to like, I don't know, go through like mediocre and bad endings. Like, I want to have all the endings feel meaningful and feel somewhat rewarding, but still be different. So I end up making a lot of extra script for myself in order to fulfill these goals. So one of the options in the game is choosing what method you want to create this contract between the weaver and their vassal. And so these 3 options here, they all have the same length. I try to make them all around the same length. They're unique conversations, and the characters react differently depending on what choice, because you're basically, it's down to whether or not you give the protagonist the method that they want, you acquiesce and you give the vassal the choice that they want, or you go with the option that's kind of like a compromise. And so you kind of get to see different aspects of the characters, how they react to getting their way or not getting their way or compromising is all going to be different, right? And still within character, but you kind of get to see a different facet of them. So these are the types of like meaningful choices that I try to put into the game. Is meaningful in the sense that you get to know the character in a slightly different way. So it's meaningful, I feel like, from a story and character development perspective, as well as you do get different different bond increases depending on what choice that you make, which can unlock more special scenes later on in the game as your soul bond increases. So, yeah, Not a whole lot of like visually exciting things that got done today, but a lot of like housekeeping, a lot of necessary maintenance and trying to fix things. I kind of changed up the way that I was layering the sprites. Talked about that for like the boss encounter, to try to lower the amount of latency on that. They move a little bit faster now because I have them on shorter cycles, so there's that as well. And I think that that's fine. Slightly less lag. I don't know how noticeable it is to other people, because there is still some lag. But I feel like there's noticeably less lag because I put the yeah, I put some of the stuff on different layers. Oops. I guess this is an old save file, so it's not showing like the laid background. So let me go ahead and do a fresh load. This is why I have this great little starter here for testing. So yeah, their animation cycles are on 2 seconds instead of 3 seconds. So it cuts down their number of images from like 30 to 31 to 21. This kind of stuff going on in the background is on a separate layer, so it doesn't have to keep reloading when these expressions switch out, which I think also helps a little bit with the latency. But there's still just a little bit of a pause there, but I don't think it's too bad. So I'm probably going to leave it as is right now, because I think it's at least a noticeable improvement performance-wise, like from my end. That if you're just going through this for the first time, it's not going to be too noticeable. Now, when you're going through this, if you're going through this encounter for like a second time, where you're kind of like just trying to blitz through the text as fast as you can like that, then you're gonna notice it, because as we can see there, when I just try to like click this as quick as I can, then you can notice that kind of pause there of it trying to catch up. But I think as long as you're kind of actually reading the text, giving the sprites a chance to run their cycles, you know, not too noticeable. So I'm gonna leave that as is, at least for now, for the GameJam, and it's something I will definitely keep in mind as I create boss encounters in the future, to be mindful of how much this engine can handle things going on. So yeah, that's all. Just planning on making some little movie cutscenes, 2 movie cutscenes this week, and going through and doing more of this kind of like just editing little stuff and trying to make things a little smoother. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're almost there, folks. I'm so excited. We're getting there. This is like the absolute best part of working on these types of projects, is I have planned out, and I think this is the hard part for a lot of people, is when you have something that's a long, complicated task with a lot of different moving parts, getting started and getting your tasks organized in a way that you can actually start making progress on these things, and then being able to stick to that as the different tasks start to come together. It's a slow process, so being able to keep your eyes on the forest through the trees, so to speak, keeping your eyes on that prize at the end, on getting that that completion, and even though this isn't a full game, seeing it to this level of completion of the demo I've kind of incorporated most of all the elements that I was planning on for the game, so it feels complete from like kind of a programming sense. Like, does this work? Does that work? Does this feel the way I want it to? Does this background and these sprites and this animation, do these elements all kind of like flow together and create a environment that tells my story, presents my characters, you know, in a way that's an experience. Like, is this an experience? And is this the experience that I wanted people to have? So I'm at that point finally where I can see it from beginning to end of the demo and say, okay, this feels like an experience. And overall, if I were to compare it to the first Soul Union, it's closer to my vision as what type of experience I was trying to create. So it's very exciting. I can't wait to share with you guys, and I hope that you'll give it a try. I hope that that you'll give me some feedback. That would be great. I would really love that. So, yay! Going into the last week or two of development and for the jam, and I'm very excited. So, have a great week. Try to stay cool. It's real hot here in Indiana. And yeah, and don't forget to enjoy that process. Take care. Bye.